Adrian is a homegrown individual from our church. He was in the Boy Scouts, and he got his, I guess, 57 badges, and he is an Eagle Scout. And for the last couple of years, he has been involved with politics, and he got a 6-month tour of Washington, working for Ronnie Jackson, and as one of his aides. And so he's been in Washington for a while, and he says that by the time he's 35, he wants to be president. So we have something to look forward to. Maybe not in our time period, but we can look down from heaven. Here's Adrian.
Again, Ms. Norma and Mr. Wayne Hellman, thank you for having me. It certainly is a pleasure to be able to speak to everyone this evening about my experiences in Washington, D.C., primarily as a congressional intern for Congressman Ronnie Jackson. So I was up there August 1st to December 16th, so really was able to kind of see the last kind of bits of our legislative session of the 117th Congress. I don't want to focus on too much of the, I want to give you the rundown of my experiences, but what was fairly interesting and what I think that God was really telling me to kind of focus on this evening was my Catholic experiences and the experiences that I really was able to experience, traveling through Virginia, in Washington, because the faith in our Catholic faith is beautiful. And as a young person at the moment, it was just really a transformative time, transformative moment. And I feel very incredibly blessed, to say the least. So, awesome. So here we are. I want to start off on the road trip. Actually, really quickly, again, I am an Eagle Scout with Troop 87. So I actually attained my Eagle Scout in 2019. And after that, my Eagle Scout project was installing smoke alarms in the San Jacinto area of our community, installing 306 alarms into about 148 homes. And that was a partnership between the American Red Cross, the Amarillo Fire Department, the Amarillo Police Department, really our own, St. Thomas the Apostle Catholic Church. It was really amazing. We had all hands on deck, and something that I'm very grateful for. But the road trip, so the second to last week of July, my father and I, we set off on a road trip, and it spanned over 1,700 miles across 6 states. So this is, I don't know, the power, no, a little weak. The car, the Volkswagen Taos, that is St. Ben. And through the grace of God, so St. Ben, named after St. Benedict, and I'm convinced I'm not going to get in a car wreck. I've had a lot of close calls, but it really has served me well, and I have a blessed St. Benedict medallion in my car. Travels with me everywhere I go. But we visited 5 different state capitals, witnessed some of the great historical sites, such as Andrew Jackson Hermitage, a Catholic cathedral in Nashville. Even ran into the governor of Kentucky, Andrew Bashar, coming outside of his mansion. So, it was a really interesting and packed experience. So you can see that's the cathedral there in Nashville, Tennessee. Really beautiful high altar. And so, of course, in the middle we have Andrew Jackson's Hermitage. And on my left, you can see the West Virginia State Capitol, which is iconic for its gold dome. Really, really beautiful. Through the grace and providence of God, 2 weeks prior to setting off the trip, and after sending a very convincing email to the Focus Missionaries group, I was able to find a host family. How I really got this internship, I sent my resume to the chief of staff for the congressman. He was like, we'd love to have you. Here's the catch: you have 2 weeks to figure everything out. You have 2 weeks to figure out housing. You have 2 weeks to figure out transportation. Yeah, and we need a yes or no fairly quickly. And so it was one of those moments. You'll appreciate this. That morning, I was actually in the Adoration Chapel right over here, praying, and I was like, okay, what does this look like, God? There was that internal conversation that I was having. Sat down, went to Palace right over here, and of course, that was whenever I sent that email. Got a response, changed my life, met my amazing host family, the Hastings. And so Glenn Hastings, he's here on my right, and then Carmela, you can kind of see her. I didn't have a lot of good images, so you'll have to excuse me. Wonderful Catholic host family in Gainesville, Virginia. So Glenn Hastings is a retired Green Beret and entrepreneur. Carmela Hastings is an amazing mother of 2 boys, Ethan and Roman, and they welcomed me, in as one of their own. And so sharing one thing in common, again, we've never met before. Prior to setting off, we had one thing in common, that was our Catholic faith. So Gainesville, Virginia is roughly 1 hour to Washington, D.C., not including the lovely traffic and construction that can turn a 1-hour commute into a 2 or 3 hour commute. And I am happy to report, again, like I said, my car, named after St. Benedict, came back without a scratch. And so if you know the area, that really, that's a phenomenal, that in itself, that's an incredible thing. So we arrived in Washington. So my father and I drove 1,700 miles. My mom, wonderful mom, she flew in, so she didn't get to experience the road trip. Here I was, a kid from the Panhandle of Texas, notably my first time in Washington D.C. and the East Coast. Arrived. The first thing my parents and I did when we stepped foot in the district was walk the entirety of the mall. And not the type of mall my mom really loves. So but nevertheless, we walked 2.5 miles. That was really beautiful. Got to see the monuments. Again, we were tired, and my mom was asking where the outlets were. Jess, my sister, and she's the small one, right there in the middle. She was not able to make it on the arrival trip, but she did make the trip later on in the fall. Really wonderful to spend time with her in Washington, as did my cousin Melissa. And so I just had to give them a shout out. So we arrived in Washington, and here are some of the sights. And so my mom and I are here standing in front of the Cannon House office building. So this is where the congressman, it's undergoing renovations right now, so he's actually not in Cannon right now, but during the fall we were in the Cannon House office building. And you can see here on my left, we are posing in front of the United States Capitol. So it really was scenic, really beautiful. And you're standing there in the mall, right in the center. On one end you see the National Monument, on the other you see the actual Capitol. It's just one of those moments. It's kind of like, wow, you're here, and so much history. So then the work began. So again, Congressman Jackson, incredible things to say about the congressman. And so I want to give you all a rundown of what a congressional intern does. And it really can be summed up as constituent services. So Congressman Jackson, in his D.C. office in the Cannon House office building, although, again, like I said, is now undergoing renovations, they carry out matters of legislation. So this office, again, primarily only handles legislation. So it was interesting to be, present in times when controversial pieces of legislation were being, voted on, discussed on, or it was passing through. I think off the top of my head, the Inflation Reduction Act was a massive one. The Credit Card Competition Act, if you follow that, was another huge one. So many of my duties included, phone calls, drafting letters to constituents, and assisting staff members with day-to-day tasks. So again, it was really interesting, to be in that position. However, I was most famously known for my enthusiastic tours of the United States Capitol building. I had the pleasure to give one of our very own, Miss Julie Jones and her incredible family, a tour of the Capitol, and amazing other constituents. And so often I would be asked, Adrian, can you come down from Gainesville, come give a tour? And I would enthusiastically say yes, because I loved it. Being there into the rotunda, if you've ever been, if you've ever seen the rotunda, it really is beautiful. It takes your breath away. And to witness history and the decisions that were made in that area, I mean, it was so beautiful, impactful and stuff like that. So the congressman's staff, I know you can see, I think my pointer's not working, but here you can see the congressman's staff. Congressman Jackson here is in the middle, and I'm standing next to, in the rotunda, in the famous painting, that is Sir Lord Cornwallis's, I believe, surrender, so that's Battle of Yorktown. So the life of an intern is simply what you make of it. It's an experience of unparalleled opportunity, excitement, and for a history and now Catholic nerds such as myself, be able to be there when legislation is being passed is very impactful. So in the span of 5 months, I visited more than 30 museums and historical sites. My parents, they famously tell the time I, without their knowledge, drove down to Virginia Beach, which was a 4-hour road trip. I made a whole beautiful trip out of it from Gainesville, went an hour or two to, I think it was Old Colonial Williamsburg, if you're familiar, really beautiful. Spent the day there. Went on to Virginia Beach. Once I was done with there, went to a Cracker Barrel. Wonderful evening. So yeah, again, I say it really is what you make of it. So I kind of chose to be on more of the adventurous side. However, for the sake of this lecture, I want to focus on the beauty of our faith, the beauty of the architecture, the art, the beautiful liturgy and music, again, also influential on how, during this time, I developed as a Catholic, and as a young Catholic at that. I mean, down the street from the Cannon House office building was St. Peter's on the Hill. Now you can see the beautiful steeples and prominent bell tower, and most times during my lunch period, it was really awesome to just walk down there and attend daily mass during my lunch. And so, yeah, you can see there on the left, that's the inside, really beautiful. It has the high altar, stained glass windows. I mean, really just beautiful. So really amazing. Awesome. And so, and again, when I would tour the city on my own, I would make it a point to notice and walk into churches I came across, even if it was just for a moment. And this is actually really funny. And again, so being from West Texas, especially, we do face-to-face confessions. I'm not used to the confessionals, and so I wasn't as, unfamiliarized. So on numerous occasions, I would just peek in, curious mind, walk into a confessional, and all of a sudden I hear the name of the Father, and the name of the Son, and the name of the Holy Spirit. And so, so it's really, really interesting. God definitely, kept me exactly where He wants me. So that was really beautiful. It really kept me down to earth. But you can see, I believe this church here, actually, for a moment, the one with the red doors, I believe that's actually the oldest church in the district. And it was the one that was first built. It's really beautiful, but the architecture, if you let me digress just for a moment, it's really beautiful. I mean, you have architectures, high altars, steeples. I mean, it was prominent. And again, I actually had the wonderful opportunity to attend the last Latin Mass in Gainesville, and so that leads me on to my next point. In Gainesville, so I attended our beautiful local parish, Holy Trinity, and perhaps one of the biggest takeaways was from living with my host family. I'm so grateful for this. Was being able to be a part of their family so naturally, and as Catholics, I mean, seeing we all went to confession, we all went to mass, and it was just one of those things, and we would openly talk about our faith, much like we do in my own family here in Amarillo. And so again, I mean, it was one of those things and realizations. It was anywhere you go, the faith is not going to leave you astray. And so I actually went to Holy Hour with Glenn at 4 in the morning. Again, he's naturally up for that stuff. And again, we all received, including Roman and Ethan, regularly we're attending, the communion and reconciliation. So it was just very powerful as a young Catholic to see that, success in our modern culture should be defined as, leading our families to the faith and leading them and living out that faith as well. But interesting enough, this photo I took, again, like I said, in Holy Trinity was, right before we had the last Latin Mass in that parish, and that was just beautiful to be able to experience that. Awesome. So located in Washington is the Catholic University of America, home to the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. And I looked this up, I fact-checked it, with more than 80 chapels dedicated to Our Lady. And so there's so much to say about, the individual facts, the architecture. It is the largest Roman Catholic church in the United States of America. And naturally, as a Texan, I said, we have the space, we have the means, we have the culture, so we could fairly easily, be home to the largest, shrine basilica in the United States. But here is a picture of myself and the President Kilpatrick of the University of Catholic University of America. Again, you can see the beautiful stained glass window, the prominent bell tower, and if you're standing right there on the steps, that flag, it's unreal. It's so massive, it drapes, and if you ever have an opportunity to go to Washington, visit the Basilica. And so here I am standing, so just very massive. Awesome. And so you can see also, one of the awesome artifacts that they had was the papal tiara. And so this was actually, I believe it was Pope Pius. I'm not sure if it was the 6th or I don't recall the exact title, but Pope Pius, that was his papal tiara, and of course, since then things have kind of changed. And here in the center, you have the mosaic of Christ the Redeemer and Christ the King. So it's really beautiful. And so each dome actually has a story. So you have, I think you can kind of see that is in the first one here on my left. Yep, here on my left, you have the crucifixion, mosaics of the crucifixion. You have mosaics of, I believe it was Noah and the Ark, and a beautiful mosaic. And so again, Adam and Eve had all of these different biblical stories, and the architecture was unreal. And so my next one here is a beautiful organ. Again, that stained glass window. It's really awesome. You got the Holy Spirit, the dove of the Holy Spirit right there, really radiating on the people and Mary. And so again, during this time, it was really immersed in the beauty of our traditions and the beauty of Catholicism, and something that, for me, it really strengthened my relationship. And so, awesome. Wonderful. One of the mosaics, this was really one of my personal favorites, was the crowning of Our Lady. Beautiful. I'll just let you look at that. Awesome. And Miss Julie Jones, we actually attended Mass. And of course, Miss Julie Jones. So it was really beautiful. We had Mass, went to dinner. I was able to give her and her family, a tour of the Capitol. Awesome. And just right down the road is actually the Franciscan monastery. So it was filled with theological and historical facts, and this is actually the place where I stumbled into confession. It was, just opened and automatically. So kind of was put on the spot. But again, same beautiful dome, beautiful architecture, the arches. They have a really beautiful property there. You can see the altar here is in the middle. Again, just really beautiful. Yep, and so here, actually, let me see. Yeah, so you can kind of see how tall it is. And so you actually go up the stairs. I should have taken a picture of the stairs. And so there is a wooden scene, 3D, beautifully, life size of the crucifixion. Yeah, I know. So you walk in, you see this beautiful arches, and it's 2 or 3 stories tall, and it's, just really, it's one of those things that's, you just have to stand there and you're looking up, and it's really beautiful. Wonderful. I actually had the opportunity to also visit, this is in the Catholic University campus, was the pleasure to visit the John Paul II National Shrine. An experience I never will forget, and so it did a really wonderful job about walking you through his life and his life story and the struggles. And this, I believe it was, I'm going to try to say this on top of my head, it was one of the encyclicals, and actually I think this is more modern encyclical, but the struggles of the faith and the struggles of the church the struggles of the people in our church are the struggles of our church. And I think that statement really reflects what Pope John Paul II, how he lived his, or excuse me, not how he lived his life, but rather that motto. I mean, persecuted during World War II, as we know, it's really beautiful. And so there is his famous cross. That was actually his vestments, his famous red shoes, the left side statue. Awesome.
Hello? Well, I forgot to turn my phone off.
Awesome.
I love it.
Just take a quick break.
That's fine.
All righty. Well, good deal. Okay. That's right. So perhaps the climax of this great Catholic pilgrimage that I didn't even know I was on was my visit to the Apostolic Nunciature in DC, so located on Embassy Row. So for context, this is actually the site where popes and high-ranking Catholic clergy visit on official visits. And so we arrived and they welcomed us, and I'll never forget this. They laid out just for us, cookies, snacks, and sodas. I mean, they really went all out. They rolled out the red carpet. Really, I mean, it was phenomenal. But the actual apostolistic, can I ever say that, nunciature, the nuncio oversees kind of all of the dioceses in the United States. Does a really good job about electing our bishops, and again dealing with matters of our church when it comes to the I don't know how to explain it, more of the managerial aspect of that, but also being the face and representative from the Holy See to the United States. So yeah, you see that's the outside of it, and I don't know if you can see it. Underneath the flag is the papal coat of arms. Awesome. So to our right was actually our tour guide, and he was of the St. Francis of Xavier Order, which is an order that primarily is education. And so here in the middle, whenever you walk in, it has a grand staircase going up. The architecture was Art Deco, so it was really kind of something that was really unique. And so you can kind of see the Art Deco chandelier. You have a Centurion guard right here, standing. And there in the back, I don't know if you can kind of see it, it's kind of propping out to the right, was a stained glass window of Dante's Inferno, which I am a big fan of. Yeah, awesome. So yeah, Dante's Inferno, they brought in a world-class, artist. And again, I mean, you can see the details, and I mean, they have the beginning, the famous beginning lines. I was in a dark forest, was lost the path. And you can see, I mean, they had the beautiful. It was very detailed, suffice it to say. So again, we were also in. Excuse me, let me just. But again, so here on the second floor. Awesome. Was the stateroom. We met with His Holiness, the Nuncio to the United States, Archbishop Christophe Pierre. And so one of the comments he made that I never will forget, and I think that still sticks with me today, is he said, right face to face, he said, we need more diplomats and we need our young people now. And so I don't think I'll ever forget that dialogue and that we had with them. But again, I mean, it was amazing. And so there we are, there in the state room on the second floor. And there, the flag, that's actually where many popes get their photos. So we were standing, that was our tour guide. There, the American flag and the papal flag. Awesome. Well, good deal. But while preparing for this lecture, I couldn't help but to feel amazed that I was, able to see and experience all of this. I mean, I blinked and it was October, and I blinked again and then it was December, and so, and it ain't slowing down. But if you'll allow me to just a few minutes longer to wrap up my thoughts, I want to share the beautiful beginning of Dante's Inferno. So midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark. For the straightforward path had been lost. My family and I, we went into this journey back in August knowing that there was a substantial amount of risk involved. And as a student who was living with a host family that I had never met before, a little under 2,000 miles away from home, as Dante had Virgil as his guide, I had my faith, the church and its members as my guide. So one of the many things that I learned during this time was an understanding that our faith is not just pious platitudes. Rather, it is a calling to live in the light of the faith, a full embrace, as I have heard it said. And I will be the first one to tell you, that is not an easy thing. So as you already know, we live in a culture that hails the cultural relativist as king, and has no issue promoting the culture of death. And to briefly share my thoughts, I reflect on the writing of the late Pope Emeritus, Pope Benedict the 16th, in his 2012 Sacramentum Caritas, as he outlines the importance of upholding the sanctity of life and not to be associated with the seamless garment theory, the sanctity of marriage between a man and a woman, and the importance of the family unit. So much like my host family in Virginia, they taught me again, like I mentioned, what success means in this modern culture, to lead our families to Christ. And so I can assure all of you this evening that my focus is to defend our Catholic principles, to stand against the culture of moral relativism, the culture of death, whether it be here at home or in the halls of the United States Congress. And so Thomas Merton said, democracy cannot exist when men prefer ideas and opinions that are fabricated for them. The actions and statements of the citizens must not be mere automatic reactions, mere mechanical salutes, gesticulations signifying passive conformity with the dictates of those in power. So the time is now to stand up for our faith. The time is now to stand up for our values. It's a time to stand up for our families, our traditions, and the beauty of our church. And so, and I want to say that this community, and coming from, Amarillo, Texas, and St. Thomas the Apostle Catholic Church, this community has impacted my life. And so our Catholic community has impacted my life so positively. And so, it's amazing to reflect on, and it's amazing to be able to share this experience with you. And so, if I have any words of advice that I learned or that God has been telling me lately, that is to simply keep the faith. But other than that, may God bless you, may God bless our church, and may God bless the United States of America. So thank you.